There we go. Okay. This is part two of the business expenses. So let's go over it, continue it here. When a person is self-employed, they usually don't have benefits available to them. They only have their benefits that they actually go out and purchase. Well, that's an expense if you're self-employed. In other words, you're out there as a self-employed person spending for this health insurance that normally an employer would be buying for you, that they would have premiums, you're paying a portion of it, they pay part of the portion. Well, when you're self-employed, you don't have that benefit. And that's normally, when you think about it, one of the biggest expenses we have is medical insurance. As everyone knows, you're talking thousands of dollars a month just in medical insurance. If you have a family, especially, if it's just you, that's one thing. When it's you, your wife, and your kids, you are talking a very large amount every month. Well, if you're self-employed, it's even worse because nobody is helping contribute to that, to those premiums. So what has happened is you, unfortunately, as a self-employed person, have an expense that is not compensated by an employer. So as a result, it is an expense to you. Okay. Now there are certain conditions. Now this is the important part. Because you are claiming self-employed, all right, you need to have certain conditions which are met. Now, number one, you have to show net earnings. In other words, it must show a profit as a self-employed. You can't show a loss and claim self-employment for your health insurance. Okay. You have to show, you have to be a partner. It has to show a net profit on a Schedule C or a Schedule F. And be a partner with net earnings reported on a K1 if you're in a partnership. Now, you can't take the deduction for any month you're actually eligible to participate. Now, this means participate. Now, that's the important part, and that's the part that actually, in a sense, is terrible. You cannot participate. You cannot deduct it unless you can participate. Now, by that it means if it's eligible to be in it. Now, whether you take it or not is up to you. But if it was eligible to be in it, you cannot take that deduction for any month. So if you had a job for part of the month, for part of the year, that you had an employee contributed health plan, any of those months that you're working for that employer, you cannot take the self-employment healthcare deduction. Okay, if it was just eligible to be in it, if you could participate. Now, that is an important factor, okay, because a lot of people try to take the deduction saying that they had their own health insurance. They just elected not to take the health insurance from their employer. Well, it was available to them, so as a result, they expect you to take the employer's health insurance. Okay, I know doesn't sound exactly fair, and in truth, it doesn't really seem fair, but if you are eligible to take it, you cannot claim the self-employment healthcare deduction. And one of the things you want to cover, and this is really important, there is a publication on the Schedule SE, the self-employment schedule, that anytime you have a person, you really want to know that schedule, okay? It has special conditions, and it's one of those niche areas. Again, we were talking about going to the foster homes and the adult foster homes and looking at too. There is also another marketing area that you guys can consider that's really important, is going to a niche market. Okay, if you become really good in a market, people will go find you. okay, in a particular area. By that I mean something like, in this case, like real estate agents are self-employed, basically. Okay. Attorneys, well, attorneys probably wouldn't be the best choice, but individuals who are self-employed, loan officers are self-employed. When they work for the small loan origination firms, they're self-employed. They're not. If they work for the bank and they're a loan officer, then they work for the bank. But if they actually work for one of the loan origination firms, they're self-employed. They have a license, but they are self-employed. Most of these people, like the real estate agents in a firm, in a real estate agency, are all self-employed. They're all independent contractors. Guys, if you really become good at knowing those self-employment laws, there are a whole lot of real estate agents who could use your help. Because if you become the master at their taxes and helping them structure their stuff to protect their the way they're doing things, because a lot of real estate agents also invest in real estate. You become that, there's a lot of opportunity there to do their taxes year after year after year. Okay, so think about that as a niche market. And there's other ones too. If you specialize in doing the taxes for a particular industry, okay, maybe you're good at doing it for nurses, who knows, something like that. Maybe you're good at doing the taxes for a particular specialty that does self-employment or something like that. Figure that one out. Look up industries that are self-employed. Okay. And figure that one out, because if you learn the laws really well, then it will get around that you're the person to talk to, because they do talk. All right. And as a market, if you're getting a referral, I got news for you. A referral, a face-to-face referral counts as more than any kind of marketing you can ever do. That has more of an impact than any kind of marketing you can do. Because if I tell you, hey, I went to this tax person, man, he knew what he was doing about our stuff. For a real estate agent, or for, I'm self-employed, small business, whatever it may be, or you can go to title companies, look for property owners, people who own single properties, rental properties. They work that own one non-owner occupied one or two properties, and you go seek them out. Okay, you go after that market. Guess what? You become the expert at it. Everyone will be coming to you. Okay, if you speak Tagalog, but like I said, if you started looking for the Phil-Am Association, I got news for you. If you start marketing as the tax preparer for the Phil-Am Association, that's a perfect niche for you. Okay, Sheila, you have small business experience.
Yes.
Start marketing to those small businesses, and you start looking up small business licenses. Those are self-employed people. A lot of them are self-employed people, and you become an expert at it. Guess what? You just study that and become the greatest at that one particular area. Wow, everybody and their brother will come to you.
Wow.
Okay, don't worry about trying to look for a whole bunch of different things. Become the person who is the best at this particular niche.
Mm-hmm.
And then go after that niche. Small businesses that are, a little mom and pop place, they
Right.
all need to have their taxes done. Well, market to all of them. Doesn't matter where they're at. We can do drops from wherever they are in the state. I don't care where they are. They can be in Portland. You can be in Sherwood. They can be in who cares where. Okay, they can be in Seattle and you can do their taxes. You don't need to.
I belong to the Chamber of Commerce in Wilsonville.
There you go.
That might work.
Look for every small business and become the expert at it. Become the best at it. Learn everything you can about small business tax law and market to it. I mean, like I said, Naomi, the Filipinos will come to you. Okay? You
Okay.
know how many of them. I mean, my God, it's like a family. You know, it's like they all want to go to the same one. Okay? It's like pastor getting a Filipino realtor. Why? Because they're Filipino. Okay? It's like it doesn't matter if the realtor is good or not. It's Filipino. That's it's important to them. It's an important thing. Go after that niche. I mean, like, and here's one important thing for you. How many Filipinos they need an I-10? They're not here. Think about what they need. They're not here with a social security number in a lot of cases. So what do you want to do? You want to become an expert at foreign tax law, when they have foreign income, because what are they doing? They're sending money back and forth to the Philippines. You know that they're going to have, a lot of them are not going to have their SSA in place.
Mhm.
So you want to become an expert at the I-10, get that W-7, know exactly how it gets filed, what needs to be done with it, okay, how it needs to be filed, when it needs to be filed, what needs to go with it. Even looking into getting the certification so you can get your CAA, your Certified Acceptance Agent, so you can see the documents, make the copy of it, sign off on them, and have them sent in place of the originals. You do that, and guess what? Everyone has to come to you that can do that. All the Filipinos who who are new here
Yeah.
have to get that. I mean, that market is huge for you, and that's over the entire, Pacific Northwest. Forget, so.
It's like the Vietnamese people always go to Vietnamese people for whatever service they need.
Exactly. So think about that. If you become an expert at the self-employment tax, especially in small business, you are going to kill at it, especially understanding these rules. If you understand these rules, and here's a big one. If you know how to structure K1s,
Mhm.
that's an important thing.
I
Okay.
hope we're going to get into that.
And we are. That's actually one of the things that I'm pushing for, because we have a whole bunch of people who need K1s.
Mhm.
And what we've done in the
Yeah.
past, it seems to be that we just shove them off to a couple of people and they do them on the side. And that's not what I want. I want us to actually be able to do all of our stuff for all of our people.
Yes, absolutely.
And so we're going to look into being able to do K1s. All right. So
That's
now
great.
it is self-employment health insurance is tax deductible, but under only certain conditions. And that's the important thing. If you know those conditions and you are an expert at it, that's what I'm trying to say. If you understand these conditions, guess what you just did? You got them a tax deduction, because somebody else is going to look at it and go, oh, no, I don't think that's really not tax deductible. Well, yes, it is. Okay. That is tax deductible. And you're going, why are they telling you, it's not, when it is tax deductible? And for you to get them that extra amount, they're going to start coming to you if you're an expert at it. Become an expert at like self-employment, or become an expert at one of the others. All right, so let's go on here.
If you are partners, where do you deduct the health insurance?
Yes, you could, depending on, like I said, remember, partners don't necessarily mean in just one thing, because you can be a partner in multiple businesses.
Mhm.
Okay, you don't need to only be one. I can be a partner with Bob in this business, and I can be a partner with Tina in this business, and I can be a partner with 50 other people in this business. Okay, we always end up thinking that you only have one business that you're in. Entrepreneurs are usually can be in 30, 40 businesses. Okay, most people think in terms of, I'm in one business. Okay, all right. let's do this now. All right. Interest expenses. Now, these are pretty much you can deduct interest paid on certain things if the interest is against certain types of loans, okay? Because it will depend on what the loan type is, okay? You can, under the cash method, a business can deduct interest paid during the tax year. Now, this is, again, the important thing is when it gets accrued, all right, when it gets incurred. If you are using a cash method, you deduct the interest paid during the tax year, okay? Now, if it's the accrual method, it is interest that is acquired during the tax year. So it's not, it's what's built up over that tax year, okay, for interest that built up during that time, because it is an expense. You're paying interest on a loan. Now, it's personal interest, investment interest, portfolio interest, and any interest related to the trade or a business. Okay. Let's see. Now, by that, also, interest paid on such things as payments. So if your business has interest on a credit card, that sort of thing, that is a cost for doing business. Okay, so that is deductible. All right, let's keep going here. But to get into it, that's all you really need to know is what that interest is deductible depending on what type of loan it's on. All right, now property interest is a little bit different, and that's going to get into mortgages, and that's actually handled a little bit different, but that's handled in a different way. Okay, so that doesn't count as quite the same thing. Okay, so that's the one exception to this. Interest expenses are typically on any loan except for actual real estate. Okay, real estate loans are handled a little bit differently, so we'll get into that because that's a separate expense in itself. All right. Next one.
Real estate counts as an investment, essentially, right? You can't
Right.
deduct
You can't
investment
deduct it.
interest
You can't.
expense.
Exactly. So that's part of
Not
the
as a business expense anyway.
right.
So.
It's not as a business expense in that sense because you're actually counting as an asset, where it's different than. That's why I said it's not like an expense on a loan necessarily. Real estate is something that you're going to count it. It's going to end up part of your expense for that property. Okay. So it works on the basis sense. So, and we'll get into that in detail when we get into property basis and that sort of thing, because it's the one exception. All right, rent expense. Rent is pretty much an expense. You know, you are renting property. Renting equipment. You rent factory equipment, construction equipment, office equipment, whatever it may be that you're renting is typically for short-term use, and you're renting it. It has an expense, okay, and it is an ongoing expense, okay, and it is a short-term. You rent an office space. You're renting it for this amount. That is a regular business expense, okay, and it's actually pretty cut and dried because you know you are renting it for the business. Okay. And if it includes the utilities or if it doesn't include the utilities, you know, the utilities then become a separate expense. Okay. If they're included, it's just included under your rent expense. Now this one's a big one.
Hello?
Now this is your home office deduction. Now, this is one that needs to be calculated All right. It is one that most people have a mistake in doing because they figure that they just start trying to calculate about how much it should be. You know, they start guessing. It's really based on the square footage that you're using. It's whatever percentage of the square foot of your office space that you're using in the house of your overall house. So if you have 1,000 square foot house, you're using 100 square feet of it. That's 10%. 10% of all of the bills associated with it, your rent, your utilities, all that is considered a home office expense. Okay. Now, it must be used as the home office. That is the one most important thing. It actually has to be allocated as home office space. What ends up happening in most cases, they assume that that means their kitchen table is considered home office space. That is not home office space. Okay. They will try to deduct that. It is not. You have to have an allocated space with so much square feet as your home office. And when you're doing that, that's when it becomes deductible. And I really want to get into how to do this, but because there's actually a simplified version, what they can do is there are two ways to calculate it. One is actually calculating based upon the square footage and taking the overall amount, you know, just taking the overall amount of dollars that you are using. Yes, thank you. It must be used exclusively as the home office. Thank you, Sheila. Yes, that is the important part. It cannot be something that you are using the kitchen table, your living room as sometimes as your home office. It can't count as this. It must be something that's actually being used as your home office. My half of the garage is my home office. I mean, it can clearly be seen that it is my home office. Sometimes it's used for storage too, but you know, overall, it's pretty much home office. But it must be something where it's clearly defined. If the IRS comes in, here's the important thing: if the IRS would actually come to your home, you know, for an audit and say, "Well, show me your home office that you're deducting," and they're sitting at the kitchen table, and you go, "Well, you're sitting at it." No. You know, that would be, I don't think so. All right, they're not going to accept that. It must be something that is clearly defined and clearly observable as a home office. The computer desk sitting in the corner, sometimes if you have it, you know, you really need to show that it's an office, not something that's just, you know, a part-time thing where it's, you know, most of the time it's used for family dining, and the times when you're using it as a, you know, your table for work. That's the difference. Okay. It's based on the square footage of the house. It is based on the total expenses for it. Now there is a simplified version. Now the deduction is simple. It's basically a deduction of $5 per square foot.
Yeah.
Okay, up to a maximum of 300 square feet. Okay, that's a pretty good size room, by the way. 300 square feet would be a pretty good size home office. That would be a deduction of $1,500. Okay, that's the maximum deduction using the simplified home deduction.
So if you have a home office that is actually a defined space, like a den or a bedroom, that is more than that 300 square feet, you're better off going with the actual size, yes?
The actual size, correct. Because that way it's clearly defined as that. because then you can take it off your expenses. You can go through and show all the individual expenses, everything that goes into it. Using the
Divide
simplified
that square
version,
footage by the total square footage of the house to determine how much of the
what
house
percentage?
expenses you could.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And that makes it much better for you because you are eligible then for a greater deduction.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, some people have a simplified version because they don't have such a clearly defined amount. They'll know the approximate square footage and they can go off of it then. But the important part is, like Sheila put it, yeah, the simplified method is not audited as much because you're not. It's not. How can I put it? You're not trying. You're not showing as much usually in the simplified version, and it's pretty much just a straightforward calculation. Okay, you're just saying, oh, I got about a 200 square foot office. That's $1,000. Okay, we're good. All right, and that's your deduction. But if you're going into it and if you have a 200 square foot one, it's a very nice office, and you get calculation with everything, and you're looking at a $3,000 deduction. Take the $3,000 deduction if you've got all the detail on it and all. So yeah, it's much better that way if you can calculate everything out. So, all right. The home office deduction, though, is one thing to watch for, because here's one of the things. The home office deduction is one that a lot of people take because they assume that they can put a home office deduction in their house, but it is something where you have to have justification for it. In other words, just because you want to have a home office does not mean you can. Okay, your business needs to, you're either actually running basically a self-employment business, that you are running a business clearly defined out of your house, or your business that you work for typically requires it. Okay, so if you're working as a distributor for a particular product or something, and you are selling those products, okay, but there is no local office, then yes, you could work out of your house. If you're a real estate agent, you are working for a firm, yes, you do normally have a home office, okay? But if you are working for something like a large company, like Kaiser, and you say, well, I want to have a home office. For what? Okay, you don't work out of your house. Well, I like to do paperwork at home. No, it's not a requirement for your job. Okay, so that you cannot justify it. If you can justify having the home office, that is one of the most important things. You cannot just say you want to have a home office, so I'm going to have it included in my taxes. Okay, there must be a justifiable reason for having the home office. Okay, that's an important part. It is something that if you don't have, and it's based upon what your occupational description is, okay, because the IRS, when it red flags tax returns, here's an important thing to note. In that occupational code, in other words, what occupational type the person works for, the industry, there is an assumption if there is going to be a home office or not. Okay, and it will flag the return if you have a home office in there and it's an industry that typically does not have one. Okay, that will make your return higher risk. So if the person's claiming a home office and they typically would not have one, they are at a much higher risk of being audited. And they need to understand that. God, I don't know.
How about the independent contractors? I have a client.
If you have an independent contractor, they often will have a home office if they, depending on what their industry is. Okay, if they're actually a builder, having a home office is normal. Tow truck drivers, they will have a home office because they run out of their home. An independent contractor does not necessarily have it if they are just an independent contractor who works for someone, even though it's defined as an independent contractor. If they're just
As a trucking business.
a trucking business may very well have a home office if he's just if he's running the shipments more or less out of his house and he's an independent contractor, then yes, he may very well have a home office. If he's coded as an independent contractor, but he basically is working for like Freightliner all the time, he may not have a home office. He's just working as an independent contractor, but all of his work is through one company. Okay, then no, he may not really have a home office. Okay, it all depends on if he's getting all of his work through one, if he's contracted more or less to constantly work through this. Because like newspaper delivery, okay, you're actually an independent contractor if you do newspaper delivery. You don't have a home office. You know, there's no justification for it. You're going through that newspaper and you just handled the routes for it. Okay, you're not doing anything for the newspaper. They handle the billing, they handle everything. All you're doing is you pick it up, do the route, and that's it. But you are logged in there as an independent contractor. But you have nothing that you're actually doing for the delivery routes. Okay, all you're doing is the driver. I actually think that also works with Uber. Uber would be a good one. Lyft and Uber are independent. Thank you, Sheila. That was exactly what I was thinking of. Lyft and Uber are independent contractors, but they don't have a home office. They're actually running out of off their cell phone. Well, they don't have a justification necessarily for a home office. Okay, they're not running the business out of their house. They have their cell phone. Now, their car is an expense to them. Understand that. But a home office is not something that they would typically have. I mean, if you have a fleet of cars and you're just dispersing them, that's one thing. You could have a home office then. But if you're just an independent contractor for like Lyft or Uber, no, you do not have the justification for a home office. There are some who would like to say, well, I'm an independent contractor. Why don't I have a home office? Why? You know, what are you doing? Are you planning routes? No, you're not planning routes. Are you scheduling things? No, you're not scheduling things. It's coming to your cell phone. Okay, so no, there's no justification for it. So with the home office deduction, it must be something with a justifiable cause for you to have that home office. So if your business does not allow you to typically have that home office, you can't just say, well, I've got one, I want to deduct it. Well, what business are you conducting there? Well, I do paperwork there at night. No, that's not justification. You actually have to have a justifiable reason for it. And that actually gets some people in trouble. The other thing that it must have too is it must be paid. Here's the important thing. It must be paid by the individual. Let's say that you have a home office, right? But those expenses were put in place by your employer because they knew you had to run out of your home office. That's an expense to your company, not to you.
Got a question on that one. I had a client come in for taxes,
Mm-hmm.
She got a stipend for home office,
Uh-huh.
but she wanted to deduct the expenses that exceeded that. Is that possible?
Yes. If it exceeds the stipend amount, then yes, she gets to deduct the additional amount.
Good, I did it right.
Yeah, because that just means it was above the, she's only allowed that amount from the company,
Right.
but if it exceeds that amount, then yes, she gets to take the additional amount off.
Okay.
So,
Told you I got odd ones out there in Sherwood.
yeah, there are some really strange, and they're all over, the strange ones. But yes, she would take the additional amount off.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So, God, the next one is huge. The next one's going to literally take. All right. The next section is huge. The next section is business travel and meals and entertainment. As you know, that's a huge section. And then the other two are very small because that was just the DOT and the per diem. Because it's just car and that. All right. The one thing I'm going to cover is this, and then we're going to jump to this on Monday because I've got to handle that. I'm going to cover one thing that's important. Non-deductible expenses. There are certain things that businesses contribute to that are not deductible. All right, and this is important because a lot of people assume they are because the company is paying for them because the company wants to be part of them, but they are not deductible. Political contributions. Okay, they assume because you can make deductions or make contributions to charities, and they are considered tax deductible. Okay, but contributions to political campaigns are not. All right, they are not considered. Yeah, Sheila, that's what I was going to say. I know you had said something earlier about having to leave, and I have to in a sense too. So we're going to cut this short at one, and then we're going to cover the rest of the stuff quick. Political contributions are not considered deductible. Okay, even though charities, and they're often classified, they're political campaigns, and they're considered technically as a charity, but they're not a deductible charity. Okay, so yes, you can contribute to them, but political contributions are not deductible. Now, here's a big expense that a lot of them try to deduct, but no, it is not deductible, and that's lobbying. Now, lobbying is one thing that a lot of companies typically do when larger corporations, when they can afford it, because they have interests that they want to try to influence political positions. Oil companies want drilling in different areas, anything like that. Now, if you think about it, they're hiring people to do a job. Well, unfortunately, because that's considered a political action, that one is not considered a deductible expense. Okay? It's considered a political action, and they're not going to allow you to deduct it. Otherwise, I can imagine that a lot of businesses would just start cranking up their political campaigns.
Especially the NRA.
There you go. It's like there are a lot that would just probably start cranking it up to no end. It's like they would start, lobbying and deduct everything. So no, political lobbying is not considered a deductible expense. And there's usually one question on there about this, and it'll be something crazy like, which is not a deductible expense, and they'll list one of these. Now, this is funny because a lot of them will say that, well, if we use this for business, then this should be deductible because we do business there all the time. This is not deductible, and that's for country clubs, athletic clubs, golf clubs, hotels, and airline clubs. even if it's used for business. There are a lot of executives who are like, well, I do business there all the time. I do business at the golf course. I do business at, the country club. I do business at the athletic club all the time. Those memberships are not deductible. They're not considered an expense. They're considered a luxury, and they are not considered deductible. I wish they were. That'd be great. That'd be kind of fun.
They used to be, though, didn't they? A long time ago?
Yes, they used to be, and that's the problem is they were being abused.
Yeah.
Okay. So those are not deductible. All right. Now, this is what's really funny is now some will say this is an expense if you park and there is a fine. Penalties and fines paid to any government agency for breaking the law, like parking tickets, speeding tickets, anything, code violations, those are not deductible. Okay, you could have avoided them. They are not a required expense. They are an expense that you're incurred because you were stupid. Okay, it's like that is not one that you needed to have as an expense. Some people will say, well, my van was a delivery van. I parked it in front of the place. That has happened a lot of times. Okay, where they want to deduct. I had to park there. I'm a delivery person. And I walked out and I have tickets on the car. Well, guess what? You have tickets on the car. Have a nice day. Okay, you are responsible for it. You had the choice of parking there or not parking there. That is not considered an expense. Okay. Now, here is one of the ones that gets the line kind of gets blurry. Legal and professional fees for work of a personal nature. Well, what happens is a lot of times for executives or things like that, if there is legal issues that they are involved in, it normally doesn't happen for most of our customers. Okay, let's be honest. But for larger corporations, remember a lot of a business is PR. Okay, it is PR work. So if a larger corporation has one of its executives in trouble, in other words, it's being accused of something, he has to have representation. Well, if his downfall will reflect on the company, a lot of the times the company will try to assign one of its attorneys to defend him to make sure the company doesn't look bad. That company expense for that attorney is not considered an expense to the company. Okay? If it is for him personally, now if it's representing the company, then yes, it is an actual legal expense for the company. But if it's representing him as the individual, then no, it is not, even if it's an executive of the company. And that's where the line starts getting blurry in that case, because a lot of times a higher executive of a company is being accused of something, and as a result, the company is getting hurt by it, and that happens. So what they do is they have their legal representation represent him because that's his normal attorney usually. Well, those legal fees and those professional representation fees are now his responsibility, not the company's responsibility, even though it may reflect badly on the company. Now, if they shift it so that he's reflecting his defense of the company as a result of it, then it does become a company expense. And that's one of the blurred areas that it sucks, but it's a blurry area between the two. Okay. So now don't get too wrapped up in it. Those are the non-deductible expenses that we have to be concerned about, but all of them make sense. They're either extravagant things that executives think about all those things. They're either a politically charged thing that the companies want to have some kind of political influence, or they are an executive or a stupid choice for a parking violation or something like that, where somebody in an upper management position wanted something and kept trying to charge something, and they said, you know what, that's a little ridiculous. Okay, that's not a company expense. That's your choice. All right, you want to go to the athletic club, you go to the athletic club. You do business there, that's great. Okay, but that's not a business expense. But yes, Garrett, you're right. A long time ago, they used to, actually not that long ago, they used to count that as a business expense. But they have done away with it because of the abuse of it. I mean, when you have all these executives claiming that the country club expenses, which are pretty significant, are tax deductible, yeah, I don't think we want to be doing that as a business expense. Okay. So that will not count as a business expense against their taxes. All right. Now I know, Sheila, you've got to take off, correct? I think she did already. No, Sheila already did. Okay. Yep, Sheila already took off. So, guys, we're going to cut it short there, and then we're going to pick it up on Monday. I know we actually covered some of the marketing stuff today that's actually from section 3, but I'm glad we did because I think it cleared up a few things. And Garrett, I hope that made you feel a little more secure about the way things are going. So, all right.
Okay.
All right, everybody. And we will be back here. We're going to start right away at 10 o'clock Monday morning because we've got 3 sections to go through basically on Monday.
Okay.
Okay? So we've got the last part of 4, 5, and 6 on Monday because 5 will not be that hard and 6 will get through quite fast. All right?
Okay, bye.
Okay, guys. I'll talk to you then.